Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Firestorm Games unboxing of Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. Now if you saw our previous video you may remember that we looked at just the miniatures in the game. However, this time we're going to be taking a look at the rulebooks, the cards, the tokens, the gaming tiles, everything that actually makes this a game. So let's kick things off by taking a look at the rulebooks. So the first book we have is the guidebook, and as it says on the bottom, we're going to be reading this first. And this book is the kind of explanation as to how the game plays itself. So on the front here we have some nice painted miniatures and some scenery, a kind of a brief introduction as to what the Silver Tower is about, some really nice artwork scattered throughout this book as well. Now this section just explains what all of the individual elements are, so we've got the hero cards, the chambers, the adventure book, everything like that. We get some painted examples of the miniatures, which act as an excellent reference when you actually come to assemble and paint them. Moving on, we actually start going into how the game itself plays. Now it kind of guides you through your first turn, through your first kind of hero phase and also the subsequent monsters phase as well. It kind of holds your hand a little bit, it explains exactly what you need to do, how to react to certain things, and also explains the mechanics of the game as you play through. So as detailed on these following pages, you can see that it kind of introduces new items such as actions in this case, and it moves on to continue with the actions, weapon actions, picking a target, attack rolls, and then it moves on to the adversary page where you actually start fighting your opponents. And then it kind of trails off here to go towards the later rounds. We briefly move on to some of the further rules here before we actually come across some of the actual background about the heroes that are actually involved in this game. So we've got the Knight Quester there, the Fire Slayer, the War Priest, the Chieftain, we've got the Mistweaver, the Tenenbrel Shard, and finally we've got all the Denzians of the Silver Tower themselves. Now this moves on to actually some of the rules for the adversaries. Now this is the book you'll be referring to as you're playing the game, and as you can see here, now if you're familiar with the original Warhammer Quest, you may remember that the stat lines were kind of built around how old school Warhammer used to be played. However, this time, it's if you're familiar with Age of Sigmar, you may recognise this kind of stat line, how each of the weapons have got their own abilities and cause certain damage and require certain dice to hit. We've also got this little stat wheel here as well, which is very familiar to anyone who's played Age of Sigmar. So this is the case for both the heroes as well, which we'll explore in a moment, and also all the adversaries, which are listed here. Now each of these adversaries has this little box at the bottom here, and this is kind of like an AI box, so to speak. What you do is you roll your dice for every time you are about to move a group of a particular adversary. In this case it's the Carrick Acolytes, and basically whatever roll you get, you actually perform that particular action. So it's a really nice way of keeping it's a cooperative game whilst kind of simulating the effect of a artificial intelligence and an enemy you're actually playing against. And on the back we get a quick reference sheet which explains some of the basic actions, the round sequence, and also some of the consequences of the destiny dice here as well, which is where the little familiars come into play. So that's the first guidebook. Let's move on to the second book. So here we have the adventure book. Now I don't want to go into too much detail on this book because I don't want to spoil some of the contents that's inside, but what essentially it is, it's a book which helps you to kind of maintain an element of choice, an element of surprise when you're playing the game. So you don't really know what's going to be happening because all of these little scenarios can occur at any point in the game. They're all randomly selected by rolling dice, or actually specifically selected by certain card effects, for example. So there's quite a few in here, and you'll act them out as necessary. But what's also interesting about this book is it actually includes some additional champions. So instead of just using your the Fire Slayer that you get in here, the Barbarian, the Sigmarite, all those, you can actually swap them out with Sorcerer Lord, Slaughter Priest, the Knight Venator, and the Orruk Rune Master. And it actually gives you some cards that you can use as alternatives. Now it would have been nice if these were actually came in the box themselves, but I suppose you could just photocopy them and have them printed up yourself. So it's quite a nice little additional, and we also get some more monstrous hordes and exotic adversaries here, and also some additional rules for using flamers of each, screamers, heralds, and exalted flamers as well. So plenty of different options to keep you going. And on the back here we have an adversary encounter tables which are used for spawning up your opponents as you move throughout the Silver Tower. So that's the rule books taken care of. Let's move on to the cards. The first set of cards that we have here are the Adventurer cards. Now these are the cards that you'll be referencing when you play your heroes, and there is one of these for each of the characters in the game. So for example, we've got the Knight Quester here, the War Priest there, and also the Chieftain as well. Now these cards are very much the same as the adversary cards in terms of their little stat wheel that they've got here for movement, agility, and also their saving throw. And we've also got the weapon actions just down at the bottom here as well. Now there's a few exceptions. We've got these little dice slots, which I'll explain more later on, and also each of the characters has a special set of special rules that are listed below. Now these special rules are very much geared up to their particular playstyle. For example, the Knight Quester here is very much a kind of a tank role. His job is to soak up wounds and take damage. So for example, he's got a guard stat which allows him to improve his saving throw, and he also can taunt enemies into attacking him instead, and he can also earn renown by scoring a 6 on his saving throws. In comparison, we have the Excelsior War Priest here, who is a typical priest from Dungeon Crawler games. He's able to heal his opponents, and we've got the Barbarian here as well, who's kind of a bit of a berserk, and he can run into charging enemies and do lots of damage. So that's the hero cards. Let's move on to the next set of cards. So here we have the exploration cards, and these tiles are used when exploring the dungeon. When you move from one tile into the unknown, you draw one of these cards and then you choose, you place down the tile that's detailed on the card itself. Now each of these has some special rules listed, as well as a passage that you should read from the rulebook that we've already seen earlier on. It also details any obstacles or portals that should be spawned as well. This is really nice because it keeps the game completely random. You don't know which kind of section is going to be drawn, what adversaries are going to be spawned. It kind of gives it a really nice and unknown feel. So when you, even though you've played quite a few games of Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, you'll be getting a different experience each time. So let's move on to the next set of cards. Finally, we have the skill cards and also the treasure cards. And let's face it, no dungeon exploring game is complete without treasure cards. Now, whilst these cards are earned in different ways, they both have similar effects on the game. For example, they allow you to perform additional actions, they allow you to boost actions that you currently exist, and each card features a name of the item, a little bit of background, which gives you a little bit more depth in playing the game, and then explains how they affect the game itself. And these are really nice because these are randomly drawn, so you don't know what you're going to be getting. You can't rely on things all the time to be receiving really powerful artifacts or skills, so it really adds an extra element of gameplay there. So that concludes the cards. Let's move on to taking a look at some of the tiles. Here in front of me I have a selection of the tiles that are available in Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. Now they all come in various shapes and sizes, and they all have this grid section that you can see on here with impassable items such as these statues and these fire pits marked out with these darker boxes, as you can just about see there. Now they all feature these various really nice, nicely detailed artwork. So we've got this kind of gilded chamber there, and we've got this kind of strange warped cave on the other side as well. Just an example is some of the other chambers. We've got some smaller ones here that act as small corridors, and these portal rooms there as well. We've got a small antechamber which has got this very daunting well in the middle, and then on the other side we've got this purple and blue portal. So they all come in really nice thick card, and if you've played any of the other recent board games that have been released by Games Workshop, you'll have an understanding as to the quality that these are, and you can just about see how thick and rigid these cards are. So that's the cards. Let's move on to some of the tokens. Here in front of me I have a selection of the dice and also the tokens that are available in this game. Now one of the things you'll first notice at the top here are the different various colours of dice that we have available. Now we also have a token for each of the first four sets. So we've got red, black, cream and also blue. Now these relate to these character cards. Now each character chooses one of these tokens, and this represents them on this little track dashboard that we have here, which you also keep your skill and treasure tokens as well. Now whenever you want to perform actions, you roll your 4 coloured dice, place them on your chart here, and that is exactly how many actions you can perform that particular turn, and the values of which determine which actions you can perform. So you've got 1+ dice here and 4+ dice there as well. So as you can see, we've got 4 tokens, which means 4 players can play simultaneously. We also get 4 dice here that can be used for the adversaries, and finally we have these purple dice over here. Now these purple dice fit onto this track that you can see here, and these are essentially fate dice. These are additional dice that can be dipped in whenever you either don't have enough dice here or the values that you want aren't available. However, there can be consequences to rolling these dice, and that's where the familiars come into play. Now additionally, we also have some more tokens here, such as these portal tokens, wound tokens, and we also have this little Zeech Eye logo here with the kind of teeth enclosing around the eye, and this is what the player who's currently leading the party contains, to say who's going first, and then it moves on each turn. Now these are made from the same kind of card as the gaming tiles, very thick, very rigid, and there's some really nice artwork on these as well. So that's all of the cards, dice, rulebooks, and also tiles looked at. Let's get an overall summary for Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. And there we have it. We have completed our review of Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. We've looked at both the miniatures in the first video, and now we've looked at all the actual gaming components themselves. I have to say, I'm really looking forward to playing this game. After flicking through the rulebook and reading everything you actually learn, it's very straightforward, very quick and easy to learn, even for people who are not familiar with Warhammer or Age of Sigmar or anything like that. The miniatures are really fantastic as well. It's going to be a pleasure to paint them and assemble them and actually get them on the table as well. Now, whilst there may be some people who are a little bit disappointed by the fact that Warhammer Quest has kind of been brought into the Age of Sigmar universe, I personally have to disagree. I think I really like the idea that Warhammer Quest has been given a fresh lease of life in this modern era. We've got some of the familiar characters such as the Sigmarites here, we've got the Fire Slayers. These can all be used in your Age of Sigmar armies as well, so all the miniatures are interchangeable, which is great. And it also kind of paves the way for some new ranges, which I'm really hoping that these Zangors really get actually released as their own miniatures. So if you're as impressed as I am with Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, do be sure to check out Firestorm Games web store, where you can pick up this game for £80 and 75 pence as opposed to the RRP of £95, which is an excellent saving if you ask me, and I'll pop a link in the description below. So until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.